Moving on, there is an uneasy calm on the streets of Colombo today after Sri Lanka saw unprecedented violence across the length and breadth of the country on Monday following the resignation of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Heavily armed troops evacuated the outgoing Sri Lankan Prime Minister from his official residence in Colombo after thousands of protesters reportedly breached the main gate. A pre-dawn operation by the army helped to safely evacuate Mahinda and his family. The resignation is the latest concession made by the Rajapaksas in the face of sustained anger and protests. Other members of the Rajapaksa family who previously held seats in the government have all stepped down. The only one remaining is Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who is the current president, and has repeatedly said that he will not resign despite the clarion calls for "Gotta go home" by protesters. He now has widespread powers and command over the security forces of the country. An Air Force helicopter allegedly carrying some members of the Rajapaksa family was seen taking off from the police park grounds in Colombo this morning. Meanwhile, people gathered outside a naval base in Tricomale, a port city on the northeast coast of Sri Lanka, where they suspect former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and his family are currently in. Opposition parties in the country are now calling for the arrest of Mahinda for inciting violence against peaceful anti-government protesters on Monday that has claimed at least 8 lives and injured around 200.
මේ මිලේච්ඡත්වයට රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිවරයා රාජපක්ෂ අගමැතිවරයා ප්‍රමුඛ මේ ආණ්ඩුවට සම්බන්ධ සියලුම දෙනා වග කියන්නට ඕන. මේක සැලසුම් සහගත දෙයක්. මේක හිතාමතා කරපු දෙයක්. මේක රාජ්‍ය මිලේච්ඡත්වයේ රාජ්‍ය ත්‍රස්තවාදයේ දේශපාලන ත්‍රස්තවාදයේ ක්‍රියාත්මක කරපු මේවුමක්. ඒ නිසා මේ දෙයට රාජපක්ෂවරු වගකිව යුතුමයි.
Monday's violence was widespread and so protesters set fire to all 3 houses of the outgoing Prime Minister. Homes of other Sri Lankan ministers were also torched and vandalized, as were buses and public property. The violence came to a head after protests spread across the country, drawing people across ethnicities, religions and class. Sri Lanka is currently reeling under its worst economic crisis since independence. The country has suffered months of blackouts and dire shortages of food and fuel. This has triggered massive anti-government protests across the country. And for more on this, our correspondent Dasunia Thauda, who has been tracking all the updates on Ground Zero, has sent us this report from Colombo.
The aftermath of the violence that unfolded yesterday is what you see right behind me, as 2 buses have been completely thrashed and toppled over by angry protesters. Now, this is just one such sight across Colombo. Buses have been toppled and in certain instances set ablaze by angry protesters following clashes between pro and anti-government protesters. Now, these protests have so far resulted in the death of 7 individuals with more than 200 injured following Sri Lanka's worsening political and economic crisis. As of right now, Sri Lanka is without a prime minister, with the speaker requesting the president to convene parliament immediately to find solutions to Sri Lanka's spiraling political crisis. Stay with WION as we bring you the very latest. Reporting from Colombo, I'm Dasunia Thauda.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.